it's we belong. Actually, whether we belong, we call it Chino community. It's even like now so know we are Chino Pinoy. But being Lannang, meaning we are proud of our heritage, we are proud of our culture, we are proud of our past history. But at the same time, we have also to be proud that we are now Filipino in identity, politically, economically, socially, but culturally we are Chinoy. So being Lannang is belonging to that group of people who reclaim their heritage, but who are proud of being where they are, where they were born, being loyal to the country of their birth, where they started, very proud of doing that. But then, having that chance to be part of the multicultural environment of the Philippines and be able to give, contribute to enhancing this kind of cultural heritage.
Lannang is really literally Lannang, our people. So although the speaker said you should not turn it into an exclusive term, but it is an exclusive term. We use it to differentiate ourselves from other people, those who are not Chinese, those who are Filipino or Haichanin or Mannan. So yeah, I think it has that history, and certainly in ordinary language usage, it does have an exclusive meaning to it.
Lannang to me is a community, and it's a community where a lot of us feel at home. And although historically there are differences, maybe hatred between ethnic groups, but I think we as Lannang aim to be assimilated into Philippine society, but as well to differentiate ourselves as something that's culturally unique among those groups residing in this country.
For me, being Lannang, now that I'm older, I think it's just being part of the community that is that continues to pass on the heritage of where you came from.
So for me, it's being in touch with your identity. Doesn't mean that if you can speak, you're automatically Lannang. So there's really a different spectrum talaga. And I think yung essence talaga is like if you're in touch with your culture, if you're fascinated about it, kahit like one for Chinese ka or whatever, and if you're in touch with it, interested ka.
I see that there are some younger Lannangs who also think that identities are fluid and ambiguous or flexible. And I think that is a kind of a positive sign, because then that frees people up, frees them up from societal expectations that can be constraining them, their freedom or being they want to be. So I see that, but it's not as widespread or pervasive as I wish it could be, because they still subscribe to a kind of reified or centralized versions of Lannang as celebratory sort of approaches to Lannangness, and again, this is still tied to regional projects. It's really hard to get away from that. I don't think ever we can get away from that. And it doesn't mean that we should stop identifying ourselves. It's part of our human DNA, I guess. We want to have a sense of belonging, we're social beings. And so even the number of scholars or those modern scholars recognize the fact that cannot do away with labels. You cannot do away with people wanting to identify in certain groups. And this is what one scholar, and I believe it's Spiva, who said that we can engage in strategic essentialism. Meaning we can identify ourselves with certain groups. Like, I would say identify as Lannang, as Chinoy, as Filipinos. But always making sure that it doesn't lead to excluding other people. So we do that because it's strategic. Sometimes we need to really unify, let's say, challenge certain injustices, oppressive forces. But also always making sure that we are not competing or reinforcing the same kind of exclusionary principles, ideals that come out of hegemonic projects of, let's say, nations.
It's to be the best of both worlds sometimes, but also sometimes it's also burden because whatever happens in the macro aspect of society affects you because you're a minority. Diba? So whatever's happening with the disputes in the West Philippine Sea affect us as Lannang because in general, while we Chinese Filipinos, the Lannang, the Chinoy, whatever term you use to identify yourself, regardless of how we distinguish ourselves, in the general public, they see you all as, oh, you all Chinese look alike. Diba? I know it's funny, but it's true. No? So the perception of the general public is that lahat kayong pare-pareho. No? So Chinese ka, therefore, make your own conclusions. No? So it's also a burden because my ancestors came here to have a better life. I have a better life, that's true. I'm trying to make a better life also for my children. But we have an added burden that very few other minorities have. No? We have a bad burden of defending who we are. And it's kind of sad because if we really are considered Filipinos, then we shouldn't be defending that anymore, right? Dapat tanggap na kami. Pero apparently, hindi. No? So, it's hard sometimes.
We grew up speaking 4 or 5 languages every day. You know, we learned our Filipino because, you know, we live in the Philippines, our Tagalog. Since I come from Divisoria roots, yung summers namin were spent Lecotiam. And then part of our Cotiam life, we would read mga comics. So, you know, my Tagalog was really very much honed by exposure to these kinds of Filipino literature. And then in school, we would learn our lessons in English in the morning. Afternoon was Chinese, diba? And then we spoke Hokkien-Hui, and then we learned Mandarin in school. Tapos there was Spanish also being taught. So, you know, growing up, we learned 4 or 5 different languages every day. So it's easy for us to revert from one language to the other. And that is what Big Lannang means, to be able to adapt and, you know, become a polyglot. Because that's our common experience growing up here in the Philippines.
I grew up speaking Lannang way. And I spoke to my cousins and all the uncles and the aunties in Lannang way. And it was normal. But there was no conversation na, oh, you have to preserve your heritage, you have to learn this, you have to be good at this, right? Walang ganong formal conversation. It's only in adulthood when we start grappling with who we really are, our identity, that we start thinking of, maybe I should have focused more, maybe I should have learned more, maybe I should have spoken more. Yeah.
I was back in my youth. I would totally like outright reject my culture and all that because I grew up with negative experiences within the Chinoy community. So, and especially when it comes to being publicly berated by elders, like bakit hanggang ngayon di mo pa ganyan? As if it were some software patch na di ko pa na-download. Diba? So,
updated.
and honestly for me, my entire like youth actually was more of like me rejecting that and me striving to have my own individuality regardless of what was expected of me. But it was only recently because of So Asian Comics where I started to become in touch again with my heritage. So when it comes to let's say, oh, what did my parents teach me about language? I would be like, it's a blur because I was like outright like rebelling back in the day.
For me, Lannang is yung parang yung collective over individuality din. Yung parang nasa pawon yung sarili mo. You don't matter. Yung individuality mo as a person doesn't matter. Yun yung feeling ko sa pagiging Lannang. So parang andyan yung sakit. Yung parang...
Mas strict and mas clear yung boundaries between Lannang na Chinese, Filipino. May disgrace na naka-associate na parang si Witterly, Hong Kong, parang kaya sasabi ng dati na parang si Witterly, kaya wala ka kaya kasi ayaw ko mag-associate ka or maging outsider ka from Lannang. I think not just because I've come of age, but also because I think my own generation has come of age. And before, when I look to my elderly, I see them as the preeminent Lannang. So generational gap will dictate that they're different from me. Pero because now we're becoming the generation na mas the adults, parang, sige din pala. Pero, so kaya parang may reclaiming na, I think then when the youngers and even the Sinkiao also integrate with the Lannang community, magkakaroon ng redefinition.
I was questioning why are we teaching Mandarin right now? Because we thought that Mandarin has it's more of like the national language, right? More people will understand it. So actually, I was thinking, well, is that not just a small portion of the population? So why should it's like this as a minority? Is it worth learning? Mandarin is not the only language that actually binds us together as Chinese, no? But we Lannang, the identity of Lannang, not the family, not the Caption, where we come from, okay, that makes us Lannang.
I guess there's the apprehension. Am I good enough to teach Lannang with my kids? Parang is my Lannang enough? Yeah, so parang it's an eye-opener that the mixing of the language. It's not me murdering it in that sense, but it's more of it's how it is being used, and it's how we've been hearing it. So I guess more acceptance in that sense. It's okay, just speak it the way you know how to speak it, and then maybe you learn a few words along the way, add it to your vocabulary. But I think the importance is just continue speaking.
As the number of younger generation not speaking Lannang but still identify as Lannang grows, then that means that the identity of Lannang will evolve outside, will likely evolve outside the language sphere and more of either racial identity or the sense of identity, connection with the Chineseness, the Lannangness of the person.
This embrace Lannang as very unique to Chinese Filipinos. It's a mix of Tagalog, English, and Hokkien. But I would still be worried or not like really mixing it too much. Words that are easy in Hokkien should be in Hokkien. But speaking the way we speak, pa, kasi, maka, that's okay, no? Because there's no Hokkien equivalent. But saying, likitrate pa yung, I mean, things like that is going too far. I mean, it's not emphasizing the but more the essence of being a Hokkien in the Philippines, mixing everything up, but still being understandable.
When my ancestors came here in the early 20th century, they also met local Chinese that already spoke a local kind of Hokkien. Then they incorporated that, and it's a process of passing down, and then a new generation comes, and then absorbing, and then it keeps going on like that.
Plus other languages.
Yes. So, what is Lannang right now? For me, it's the mainstream way of talking, but it will eventually evolve into other forms as new immigrants come, and it will absorb the existing. It will always absorb the existing elements and roots to how they speak. So that will be the new Hokkien way, the new Lannang way in the future.
I think the more we're exposed to Chinese from other parts of Southeast Asia or China, the more we see that we're different as Philippine Hokkien people. Even the word Hokkien, in English, we say we are Hokkien, but we know that Hokkien is Fujian. It's an entire province. We use it to mean Mindanao, but there are all these layers of meaning. So the more we think about the words, the more we see the nuances. So Lannang is an identity, I think. Lannang way. We realize that the language we speak here has already evolved so much from the Lannang way or Lannang way that we hear in southern Fujian province. There's so much English and Tagalog or even other Philippine languages that have entered Philippine Hokkien or Lannang way. So there's an expansion, and I would go with those who say that this is, contributory to the richness of Lannang way. That this is really a Philippine development. We don't have to be embarrassed that it's different from what they're speaking in China. It's different. It's the same with our customs and traditions. We talk about how we celebrate Lunar New Year, how we observe the Moon Festival, the Dice Games. I've heard people say, but they don't do that in China anymore. And I said, so what? It's in fact the customs, the language have been preserved better in the overseas Chinese communities, and that's just history. Contemporary China has been under socialism, the communist government, for several decades, 7 decades. So, the educational system is different. They have not emphasized traditional culture. Now they're trying to bring it back, but we preserved it in the overseas Chinese community. So that's something to cherish, something to savor and relish and celebrate.
If we really want to preserve our identity as Filipino Chinese, we need to know to preserve also the language itself.
It makes life more interesting for us na we are able to communicate with our elders in the Lannang community. So I think that we should make the effort to preserve it for the generations to come as well.
Actually, I feel also ashamed and also guilty and regret that I wasn't able to really teach Lannang to my kids. I feel much regret because the more languages you know, the better, the more equipped. And what more we are Chinese, we really have to know Lannang. So coming to the symposium, meeting so many people who are so passionate about Lannang. I feel after all, it's not yet dying. Maybe we just need to be more proactive in marketing this word or sharing, and even to do something about it and just not be the recipient and be the actor.
I think the symposium it is a moment for deeper thought, deeper reflection. All these terms being used, different meanings being attached to them, and just talking to my seatmates, we realized we all have different ideas about who is Lannang, who is included in that term, who is excluded. Even spelling, people say it should be L, it should be N. So then we go into, what kind of Lannang are we talking about? Is it Jinjiang, Shenzhou, Xiamen? These are all different varieties of Lannang. So it's very rich, and just to learn about this whole history, talking to the younger people, so much of what I assume to be common knowledge is not so common after all. And that's something I appreciate also in this symposium. It's bringing together people of different generations. It used to be, you go to something like this, We're talking to the same people, and there are people older than I am, but rarely you see people. That's my age also. I'm in my 50s, so rarely you see people younger than me. But now there are all these people who are advocates, who are promoting Lannang. There's TikTok, there's a messenger group, there's a Facebook page. It has entered academia with the work of Dr. Gonzales. So it's a very exciting time to think about all of this, and it contributes to, I think, the future or the ongoing evolution of identity questions for Chinese in the Philippines.
It feels good to know that there's a community who is actively organizing efforts to connect everyone and create awareness about the Lannang identity, having efforts to preserve the culture, and also trying to inquire parang what do we want to do out of this, what's our current situation, and what do we do, how do we want to proceed moving forward.
So I have seen a newfound appreciation of what the people are doing as far as Lannang Way is concerned. Kasi yun nga, there are people reaching it, there are people who are going the extra mile to make it known that hey, we are still here, we are doing something about it, and we hope that we can join the movement, the advocacy, so that the younger generations would be proud to call themselves Lannang as well.
For me, it's about time that this is being talked about, and with the melting pot of different experiences and people coming from different backgrounds. Then it's comforting to know that even though we all have different experiences and backgrounds, there's still commonalities that we can hold on to, and that we're able to connect with our culture.
I feel like now I'm more motivated to learn the language and to re-embrace it.
When I went here in the symposium, it blew me two things. One, I thought I was Lannang enough already. But secondly, I can learn a lot from these people who I feel inferior, or I feel like, actually meron palang mga Lannang na nagsasucceed in these types of industry. They also talk about this stuff. Hindi tiyamlay lang ang bulong namin. We can expand in different ways. And meeting this type of people, you always see in TVs the typical archetype of a Chinoy. Na they're this and they're that. Like, who's their role model? See, Pong Choy lang, Buchike. No, that's not me. Then you see these people real life. Wow, they're so good. Wow, they're out there. And they're Lannang.
Seeing that there's so many opportunities to learn through the Lannang archives, through tutors online, and also there is parang elders who are open to just interact with you so that you can try to speak it. I think it will be my next step, or parang inspiration to just keep trying.
Sana, the community that we have now is going to change that and make learning Lannang Way a more positive experience for people, not just in my generation, but those who want to learn Lannang Way.
Certainly for the language, I would encourage every effort to learn it, to promote it, to speak it. I participated in some of those TikTok videos, so it's very exciting and support promotion of the language. As for the identity, I think that has to be an ongoing conversation, an ongoing reflection.
Maybe it's more of my affiliations with history, cultural history, that it's good to document this and then to relate it to the Peranakan and
I guess one of the first steps is really to integration of Chinese and Filipinos, like trying to dispel or bring down stereotypes. As a start, once you overcome the stereotypes, what we talk about, again, how subscribing to such distinctions of identity which are most parts. These are myths or conventions designed again precisely to form barriers for people. And this is very difficult to achieve. But until we are able to create a society that is more critical, then I don't think that it's swing as well as
try to view the culture in a more open mind, which would probably help me being more, what's that word? Being more accepting, being more open-minded towards not just the Lannang community, but basically other communities here in the Philippines, Filipino, Chinese, or whatever ethno-linguistic identity that they take upon. So yes.
I think being Lannang, especially in the Philippines, one has to navigate through honoring both heritages because we have both Filipino and Chinese blood and culture in our veins. So that's one thing that I realized, that my multi-ethnic heritage can be positioned to positively contribute to society, and one need not to be stuck in a dichotomy of Filipino or other, or Chinese or other.
Definitely, I want to work with the people who I meet here, who are like-minded, because I think whenever I work on the subject matter of Lannang or Chinese Filipino, I'm always humbled by knowing na ito lang yung perspective ko, Chinese Filipino, Christian, born and raised in Cubao, very particular. So it's nice to, I think building a community is very important. Hopefully the symposium not only to me but also to others will build networks that will have ripples.
For my own initiative, I want to create something like Lannang Archives, or let's say I want to propose something to Will, something that is aimed at the youth. So, because I think a lot of the youth, they try to distance themselves from being Lannang because, well, there's a lot of stigma between being Chinese and pinapapili ka, Chinese ka ba, Filipino ka ba, anong opinion mo sa West Philippines, ganyan. And they're saying, spy ka ba, ganyan. And it's saying, when we hear those things, we keep on trying to shut down our own heritage and we try to assert na Filipino kami. Totoo naman talaga na Filipino kami. But at the same time, our heritage is there and we need to embrace it. Because we won't reach our full potential if we cut something that's important in our identity from what we represent.